So I heard about this new CEO of a company that he wanted to set the tone of his tenure at the company. He wanted to be respected. Maybe he wanted to be feared a little bit. So he goes to one of the factories that he was controlling, and he goes to introduce himself. He looks around, and he sees a person standing in the wall playing with his cell phone. He was furious, and he said, okay, this might be an opportunity for me to make a statement. So he goes to this man. I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm playing with my phone. Oh, really? And what are you expecting to gain with that? Well, I don't know. I just hope, to get paid and get out of here. You're absolutely right. The CEO put his hand in his pocket, take his checkbook. He said, how much you make a week? I said, $300. Perfect. He writes a check for $1,200. He said, take this, 4 weeks paid, get out of here. I don't want to see you ever again. The guy leaves. And then the CEO looks at everybody and said, what was that? One of the persons says, that was you tipping the pizza guy $1,200. So, I wanted to talk to you today about you are wrong. You are wrong. How do you feel? How do you feel when I look at you and said, you are wrong? How do I make you feel? Probably not so good. We don't like people to tell us, you are wrong. But you see, the rabbis say that there are actually 2 occasions in the year where rabbis should preach to the congregation, and the preaching should be a rebuke. Only twice a year. I'm not saying that there are other rabbis that I know as a fact that they rebuke their congregations every single week, and you know that that's not our style, but for some, they like that. They like to do that. But the tradition said twice a year, rabbi should rebuke of the congregation. Which are those 2 occasions? Number 1 is Shabbat Shuvah, which is the Shabbat in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the other one, yeah, you guessed it right, Shabbat HaGadol, the Shabbat before Pesach. And if you think about that, okay, you can understand just before Yom Kippur, divine trial. Maybe the rabbi thought it was a good idea for local rabbis to look at the congregation and to say, you're wrong, right? Maybe they will change right before Yom Kippur, so they will have a favorable verdict during the high holidays. I kind of understand that, even though I don't like rebuking. But Shabbat HaGadol, before Pesach, what might be the reason that the rabbis decided that the congregation should be rebuked? Well, and it's connected to what I mentioned at the beginning of the service, that the rabbis understand that Pesach is the new year of the emunah, of the faith. So in other words, Pesach is an opportunity for the rabbis to remind their congregations to review their relationship with God, to review how that relationship that we should be building during the year is going on. So, are we neglecting maybe our relationship with the creator of the world? So this is an opportunity to achieve that. Now, what is interesting for me is the fact that the rabbis recommended that twice a year we have to rebuke the congregation, because I don't know your experience, but my experience is rebuke doesn't work. Usually backfires. Have you ever tried to tell somebody that they're wrong? Please tell me how it went. Most of the time people get offended and you achieve nothing if you haven't achieved the opposite of what you tried. People will yell at you, and what otherwise might be a good relationship with a friend or a family member, you may be damaging it because you try to rebuke the other person. But this is also not new. Because if you go to the Talmud, there were 3 famous rabbis that they made a clear statement saying that rebuke doesn't work. And these 3 rabbis were Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Akiva. And you know what they said? Rabbi Tarfon said, rebuke doesn't work because nobody has the moral quality to rebuke. In other words, you will try to rebuke somebody, you will try to tell them you're wrong, and they will tell you, who do you think you are? So with what moral you are trying to rebuke me? And he was saying that we live in a generation where we are less than perfect, and when you are going to try to rebuke somebody, they are going to point out each one of your faults, each one of your flaws. And then the rebuke won't work. Rabbi Eliezer said, rebuke doesn't work because people doesn't know how to listen to rebuke. And he was giving an example. He said, you tell something to somebody and that other person will tell something back at you and it won't go anywhere. And Rabbi Akiva also said, rebuke doesn't work because nobody knows how to rebuke. And I like the words of Rabbi Akiva because he was implying that it's not necessarily that rebuking or telling other person that they are wrong is a bad thing, but it has to be done properly. And that's why these rabbis, I believe, they recommended not to do it. Because unless you're in a perfect situation, and unless you know what kind of words to use, don't do it. You're going to achieve nothing. But it's also implying that if you are able to find the perfect situation and the perfect words, then you should do it. Because at the end of the day, what is rebuke after all? Why do we tell somebody else you're wrong? It's because we are giving the opportunity to the other person to do better. We love them and we want them to succeed. We want it to do better things and we are trying to help them. But if we won't pick the right words, you will fail right there. And it's interesting because we all are aware that we need feedback to improve. Why do you think we have mirrors everywhere in our houses, right? The mirror is actually a feedback tool. Before you get out of the house, you want to be sure that you look okay. So you need something to let you know if there is something wrong with you. Every morning we look at the mirror and we look that there is nothing wrong with our face, with our hair, with our clothes. If you're wearing a tie, you want to be sure that the knot is perfect. That is your mirror giving you a rebuke. And we don't seem to have any problem with that. In fact, we agree that it's necessary. But when it's somebody else that is coming to us, then for some reason it doesn't work. And the rabbis tried to explore why. And they said the problem is that in every verbal rebuke, there is an element of shame. And the problem is that when you try to do that in a public setting, the shame that creates will block any kind of feedback that you can give a person. So I said it's not that rebuke doesn't work, you have to find the perfect setting. And they said the perfect setting is when you're alone. When you have an opportunity to take the person aside and to have an honest conversation about how something could be done differently. And I will give you a perfect example because this is something that happened to me and I learned all this process through a personal experience. I was in Chile and I was leading a Shiva. It's one of the services at the Shiva house. And there was a congregant from my former shul, but many of the people that they were there were coming from the Orthodox synagogue. Because the children of this person who passed away, some went to my congregation, some of the other went to the Orthodox synagogue. So during the Shiva, some days were led by the Orthodox synagogue, some other days were led by my synagogue. So I was leading the service, and at the end of the service, one person called me to the side. And I went. He said, I want to talk to you. And he basically mentioned that according to his tradition, for what he learned at yeshiva, some of the things that I did should be done a little bit different. And he said it in such a loving way that I was impressed. Because he wasn't trying to make me look ridiculous or like an ignoramus in front of everybody. He truly, lovingly wanted me to learn something new. And you have no idea how much I appreciate that kind of feedback and that little teaching that he brought to me, where I actually learned that you should not rebuke another person in public. And I said, and I was thinking, how many opportunities we miss in life, opportunities to truly work, because we are not willing to listen to other people who all they want is our very best. So I believe that that's why the rabbis say, don't be too fast to rebuke, but at least twice a year, bring it up. Bring it up. Because rebuke by itself is not bad, but maybe once in a while we have to revisit the whole thing so we can all learn how important it is to receive and to give feedback to other people so we can all improve ourselves. And in that way, to be every time a little closer to the best possible self. I'd like to wish you Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, and no, you're not wrong.